Hello everyone, myself Dr. Komal Sara from Prayosha Tutorials, and today I will be taking a topic which is haunted by most of the students. थोड़ा डर लगता है कि how to remember the 206 bones in our body. So let us study the bones or the skeletal system of our body. Okay. Now let's start with the main part, that is your bones are going to make the framework of your body, and they are going to make a hard framework of your body. Now why is it hard? Because it is made up of calcium phosphate salts. Now the bones will need the help of cartilage, the second supportive connective tissue, and the cartilage is going to support and connect all the structures of our body that are related to the bones. Coming to the third part, that is your ligaments. Now ligaments, if you recollect, is a fibrous connective tissue which is going to connect two bones together. So all the bones in our body are interconnected with the help of ligaments. And the second type of fibrous connective tissue is your tendons. And the tendons are going to connect the muscles to the different bones of our body. Now this is an example of cartilage. The cartilage is present where? In your nose. So when you press your nose and you release, your face goes back to normal. Now if you make a samosa out of your ears, you release it and it will again go back to normal. So here also your cartilage is present and here also cartilage is present. These are two distinct places where we can feel and identify the cartilage. Apart from that, the knee joint is a classic example where you can see the tendons connecting the bones. You can see the muscles also connected and the ligaments also connecting the bone and the tendons together. So everything you can together see in the knee example. Now let's see the different types of bones. Now based on the shape of the bone, we are having long bones. The long bone is a shaft with knob-like structures at the ends. Now they are filled with the yellow bone marrow in the center and the red bone marrow at the ends. So the red bone marrow is making it spongy and the compact yellow bone marrow is present in the center. Now the classic example for long bone is your femur, the thigh bone. It is the strongest muscle or strongest bone of your body, and the strongest muscle is also connected to the femur. Now coming to the second type, short bones. Now example for them is your carpals and the tarsals. So there we have the short bones present which show little movement. They are spongy and box-like in shape. The next one, we are having the flat bones. The flat bone is composed of two or more parallel plates and they are made up of compact bone. There is no sponginess in these bones. The classic example for a flat bone is your sternum, that is your breastbone, as you can see. And the last one is your irregular bones which don't have any specific shape. And the example for that is your vertebrae, which has a very complex shape and they vary in the bone tissue. They can have compact tissue as well as spongy, both the types of tissue present in them. Now here you can see one more type of bone which is called the sesamoid bone. Now this is your patella or the knee joint. Now if you see in the knee, earlier this was not an actual bone. It was a tendon which has then got transformed or converted into a bone. So it's called a sesamoid bone and we have only one sesamoid bone which is your patella. And same way we have another type of bone which we have shown here called the sutural bones. Now in your brain box, you are having all the 8 bones which are firmly connected to each other and they are forming the sutures or the sutural bones of your body. Now this is an example of your long bone. Now this diagram is going to be very helpful to understand the long bones. In the textbook we have a black and white diagram, but uska humne abhi color bana diya. Now if you see the color vision, you have the external surface of the bone which is called as the periosteum. The internal membrane is called as endosteum. Now the inner layer is rich in blood vessels, nerve fibers, and it is having the yellow bone marrow. Whereas the ends or the knobs are going to have the spongy red bone marrow. Now as the red bone marrow name is suggested, it is making the red blood cells and the yellow bone marrow is helping in making the white blood cells. Now in the red bone marrow, you can see trabeculae, which are your partitions, which are very, very clearly visible here in this diagram. Easy to understand the long now. When we are going to study all the bones, there are total 206 bones, which are including the 3 tiny ear bones present. So 3 in one ear, 3 in the second ear. They are called the ear ossicles. Now, if you divide the 206 bones, you can divide it into two parts. One is your axial skeleton along the central axis, and there are total 80 bones along your axis, starting with your skull, that is head, the rib cage, and the central vertebral column. Now, second part is your appendicular or attached skeleton, which is your limbs. The limbs are connected to the main axial skeleton with the help of girdles. So you have the appendicular skeleton, which are made up of your limbs and girdles, and you have the axial skeleton, which are made up of skull and the central torso region of your body. Now, how to remember the 80 bones of your axial skeleton? Now, your brain word is rhyming with the word crane. So, brain and crane will help you remember that the bones of the brain area are called the cranial bones or the cranium. So cranium is the brain box made up of 8 bones, and those 8 bones are going to be present in this manner. So we don't have to remember for our school level that which are those 8 bones. So just the name, and for your reference I have given you that where are they placed and how many are in number. So the 8 cranial bones are your tightly fused sutural bones, and we have the remaining 14 bones. Now 14 bones, if you remember, F for 14 and F for face. So your facial bones are total F for 14 in number. Now again, we don't have to remember the 14, how are they placed, or what are their names. But one important one which here you should remember is your mandible. If you see the purple color lower jaw structure, that is your mandible. This is the only movable bone in your entire skull. So name the following, they can ask you. Name the movable bone in your body, or name the movable bone in your skull. So what will be our answer? Our answer is going to be mandible. So if you add 8 plus 14, you get total 22 bones making your skull. Next is your ear bones, the ear ossicles. So we have 3 bones, one called malleus, second called incus, and third is called stapes. So from outside to inside, as we go, they are arranged in this manner. So the innermost, that is the stapes, is the smallest bone of your body. Again, useful for name the following. Now, the second and the last bone, which is there in your axial skeleton, is your hyoid bone. So if you can see the second diagram here, the hyoid bone is supporting the tongue. So inside the tongue there is no bone, but the tongue is in turn supported by your hyoid bone. So that is only single one in number. So 3 in the left ear, 3 in the right ear, making it 6 bones. 6 plus 1 makes it 7 bones. So previously we saw 22 skull bones, and 7 makes it 29 bones, forming your entire upper face region, that is your skull area. Now coming to below the skull, there is a hollow space called the foramen magnum, and through this the spinal cord is going to pass through. So here you can clearly see the foramen magnum, through which spinal cord is going to come out, which is connected to your brain. Okay. Next is your spinal cord with the 5 regions: cervical region, thoracic region, lumbar region, sacral, and coccygeal region. So let us see them in detail. Now, how to remember the different vertebral column bones. Now, in the cervical area, we have 7 bones. We have to remember the names of the first 2 bones. One is atlas and second is axis. Then we have the 12 thoracic bones, 5 lumbar, 1 sacrum, and 1 coccyx bone. The coccyx bone is also called as tailbone. Now, if you see, this total comes to 7, 12, 5, 1 and 1, 26. In the few, 26 in number, but if we see in the children, in the smaller children, the sacrum is made up of 5 bones and the coccyx is in turn made up of 4 bones. So there are additional bones which later on, as they develop their body, are going to fuse together. So here you can see the neck area, cervical, having 7 bones finally, 12 bones in the chest area, thoracic region. Then we are having 5 in the lumbar region. Now L for lumbar and L for lower back. So you can remember lumbar bones are in your lower back region. Then we have fused sacrum, which were 5 in number for the children, will fuse together to form one sacrum. And same way we have 4 coccyx bones for younger children, which will fuse together to form one coccyx tailbone for the adults. So for the adolescents, we can have more number of bones, and as their body develops, they will be fusing. And finally, you are getting 26 vertebral column bones. Now, each vertebral column bone is called as a vertebra, and the plural form is vertebrae. So we have 26 vertebrae in the adult human body. Now, in the rib cage, we are having total 12 pairs of ribs, out of which the first 7 are going to be directly connected to your breastbone, that is your sternum. 8, 9, and 10 are indirectly connected to the breastbone via the 7th bone, and the 11th and the 12th bone are floating ribs. They are not connected to the sternum. So like that, we have 3 types of ribs, total 12 ribs, and these are connected to your 12 thoracic vertebrae. So thoracic vertebrae are at the back and the ribs are in the front. Now, as we know, the rib cage is going to protect the vital organs, that is your lungs and your heart. Now, if you add up, it becomes 12 to the 24 ribs plus 1, that is your central breastbone sternum, making it 25. So now if I add up, the skull bones were 29 plus vertebral column 26 plus 25 forming your rib cage, coming to the total as 80. So total, this completes your axial skeleton of 80 bones. Now let's see the second type, that is your appendicular skeleton, made up of 126 bones. Now from the 126, 60 bones are going to form your 4 limbs, that is your hands. Now, if we start with the hand, the upper part of the hand, that is your humerus area, or the bone is called humerus. Now, how to remember humerus? We have to remember Popeye the Sailor Man. Now, whenever he used to eat the spinach, uska biceps increase ho jata. So, in the bicep area, we are having the humerus. So, it's a funny cartoon. It was a funny act. So, that way we can remember that यहाँ पे जो bone है, उसका नाम क्या है? Humerus. Now, below the humerus, we are having ulna and radius. Now, how to remember ulna and radius? Now, when we have to go for urination, we show our little finger. So, U for urine and U for little finger. So, on the little finger side, in the hand, you are having the ulna. And the other side, if you have to make a circle, you have to use your thumb. Without your thumb, you cannot make a circle. So your thumb wala side pe, the bone which is present in your arm is called as the radius, because the circle is having a radius. So that way we can easily remember which side, which bone is present. Then we have the phalanges. Phalanges, when we have to give a challenge to someone and we wish all the best, we take all of our fingers and roll them apart. So when you are rolling them together, it forms the challenge, and that is the phalanges help to give some challenges. So that way you can remember phalanges rhyming with challenges. Now if you add up the bones in your one arm, you are having one humerus on right side, one humerus on the left, total 2 humerus, then 2 radius and 2 ulna in both the hands. Then we have 8 carpals. Now carpals are your wrist bones, total 8 in one hand, so 8 twos are 16 in both the hands. We have 5 metacarpals. So metacarpals are your palm area. In the palm area, you are having the metacarpals. And above, in the fingers, if you can see the divisions, each of them is falling one phalange. So like that, we have 14 phalanges, 2 in the thumb and 3 in each of the fingers. Total 28 phalanges in both the hands. Now, if you add up all of them, we are going to get 60 bones of the 2 hands. Now let's go to the next 60, which is your lower limbs, that is your legs. Now in the legs, again, we have a very strong and the strongest bone, that is your femur. Again, 1 on each leg, so total 2 in number. Now below the femur, we are having patella. As I told you, it's a sesamoid bone, which was earlier a tendon. So we have 2 patella, 1 in each leg. Then below that, we are having tibia, the yellow one, and fibula, which is the green one. Now, how to remember which one is inside, which one is outside? The fibula, you can relate it to the English word feeble. Feeble means ekdam weak. तो एकदम पतला एंड वीक बोन जो है वो बाहर के साइड पे get out. So whoever are the weak students, they are thrown out. So that way the weak bone is on the outer side of your legs, and the inner and the central side where the strong bone tibia is going to be present. Now below the tibia we are having the ankle bones, which are your tarsals. Now in the hand we had 8 carpals, but in the ankle we are going to have 7 tarsals. But that additional one bone which is missing here in the 7, that is covering up or made up by the patella. So patella is that extra bone which is making the total number equal for the hands as well as for the legs. Now again we will have the same 5 metatarsals in your feet area, and then we are having the phalanges same way, 28 phalanges in the 2 legs. Now if you add up all of them, you are going to get again 60 bones. So from the appendicular skeleton, 60 in the hands, 60 in the legs. How many are total? 120. Now, how many are left behind? Only 6 more to be studied. And those 6 are going to form the girdles of your body. Girdle means the part which is connecting the torso and the limbs. So, in the shoulder area, we are having pectoral girdle, which is having a collarbone. As you can feel the collarbone here. And you are having the shoulder blade. Total, we have 2 shoulder blades, one on either side. So you can see the triangular shoulder blade, which is called the scapula. So we have 2 clavicles and 2 scapula, total making 4 bones in the pectoral girdle. Now, main point here is to understand how the humerus, that is the upper arm bone, is connected to the scapula. So scapula is having a glenoid cavity. In the glenoid cavity, the head of the humerus is going to fit. And this is very important to remember. Many times in correlation questions or analogy questions, they are going to ask you this. Now, the lower or the pelvic girdle. This is going to connect your lower limbs with the torso, and this is having only 2 bones. One on the left, second on the right. Now, one bone here is in turn formed by fusing 3 bones. The upper one called ilium, the middle one called ischium, and the central one which is called the pubis. So ilium, the bigger bone, ischium, the smaller C shape, and pubis, the central one, together forms one pelvic bone. Like that, we have 2 which are interconnected to each other. And in the center, here you can see the sacrum and the coccyx. Now, if you remember, sacrum and coccyx were part of your vertebral column. They are coming in the center, and the pelvic girdle is getting connected with the sacrum and the coccyx. So this way, the 2 last bones are making the pelvic girdle. So if you now see the total, 120 of the limbs, 4 of shoulder or pectoral girdle, and 2 of the pelvic girdle, making the 126 bones. So this is how we can easily remember the 206 bones. Now here again, the joint is very important. The head of the femur is going to fit inside acetabulum. Now what is acetabulum? Acetabulum is the cavity which is present in the pelvic girdle, and inside that the head of the femur is going to fit, and this is going to make your ball and socket joint. So if you remember, the freely movable or maximum movement is shown by your ball and socket joint in different angles. So one of them is in the shoulder, second one is in the leg area near the femur. So these are the 2 ball and socket joint examples. The types of joints, we have 3 types. One is called the fibrous or fixed joint, which is totally immovable. These are forming your head area or the cranium, the brain box. They are held together by tough tissues which develop during the childhood. Coming to the cartilaginous or the second type of joint, slightly movable joint. Here the movement is very slight, and you can see the vertebral column wave. All the 26 vertebrae are slightly movable. So that is showing your example. And second example is symphysis pubis. Now this is when you are sitting. The pubic bones of your hip girdle, they are going to support. So that is your symphysis pubis joint. And the last is your synovial or freely movable joints. Now, freely movable joints again are of many types. Around 4 types are given in our textbook which allow movement to take place. So, if you see, the freely movable joints can be pivot joint, which is in the neck area. So, your first and the second cervical vertebrae are connected by your pivot joint, which helps you move left and right, up and down. Next, you are having the hinge joint, which is in your elbow. So you are like a door hinge. The hinge joint is going to help you. Next, you are having the saddle joint here, which is again a type of gliding joint, okay, which is in the carpals and the wrist area. Next, we are having the plane joint, which is between the tarsals. So tarsals and carpals, the plane and the saddle joints are actually the two types of gliding joints. Condyloid joints are again in your wrist area, connecting your radius and ulna to the wrist. And last, you are having the ball and socket joint, which is present in your hip area. So this is how your main chapter of human skeletal system gets completed. Hope you find this video useful. Thank you.